I don't know how we're going to do it, but tonight will give us the opportunity to really hold the College Football Playoff Committee accountable. What do I mean by that? The newest rankings will drop tonight. This is going out on Tuesday afternoon. Dean and I are planning to record a live reaction to the college football rankings tonight, but with Georgia, they've got a little bit of a problem. They need to figure out where they're going to put them, because the committee's biggest problem right now is they just put Georgia behind Ole Miss and behind Alabama. And I get it. The two lost teams. Georgia lost last week. But as we mentioned last week, there were a lot of problems with the rankings. You had Miami only falling a few spots, 5 spots to be exact, compared to Georgia's 9 after each of them lost a game. Georgia lost to a ranked Ole Miss, a team that's ranked in the current top 12. And Miami lost to Georgia Tech, a team that is not ranked, a team that has 4 losses, right? And Georgia Tech's not a bad team, but one of the inconsistencies of the college football playoff rankings has been how they value losses. In a lot of cases at the top, they've been saying that they value losses a lot. But that particular example is a little bit counterintuitive to their argument. I look at the rankings from this past week, and you had Georgia at 12, Ole Miss at 11, Bama at 10, Miami 9, Notre Dame 8, 7, Tennessee, BYU 6, Indiana 5, Penn State 4, Texas 3, Ohio State 2, Oregon 1. Just to give you a refresher, that was the top 12 from this last week. We saw 2 of the teams ranked ahead of Georgia fall in BYU and Tennessee. I expect both of those teams to be behind Georgia now. So to me, tonight, what you're going to get at the very least is Georgia being ranked number 10 overall, kind of a little bit more tucked in there and secured at the very least. Now, I think that, first of all, you could truly justify starting around 6 or 7. I don't think Georgia's going to get ranked that high by the committee. But to me, look, they have an opportunity to do that, right? And it's not just me or us beating the drum on this. Kind of a lot of the college football media has felt that Georgia got disrespected, fell too many spots last week. Having them drop behind Miami doesn't make sense. You want to ask how I would do this? I would have Georgia. I'd have Georgia in that 6 or 7 range. That's where I would have Georgia right now. Understanding that having 2 losses kind of means it can't really be a top 5 team to an extent, right? I don't think that that's the best way that we should evaluate these things. I apologize for the noises. They will be done now. With Miami, I would have Georgia ranked ahead of Miami now. Now, the biggest problem for the committee is Ole Miss and Alabama. Is Georgia going to be ranked ahead of those 2 schools, right? Is it going to be ranked ahead of Ole Miss? And I don't know. Now we're getting to the point where do you throw out the head-to-head because you have the triangle of Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee playing it? I think that could be a real problem for them, right? They claimed that head-to-head was the reason. Do they slide Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia all up as a trio? There's a lot of different ways that the committee could go about this, and I have a qualm with it, and it's why I think they should jump Georgia a little bit. If they want to show some consistency, then they need to jump Georgia a few spots back up there. And I'll tell you what that is in a second. Ryan Kelly from Dawg Post. The newsletter is linked down below to dawgpost.com. Make sure you are signing up for that. It is one of the best ways that you can stay up to date with everything that's going on. We try to blast that out every single day, every single afternoon, every single game day. So make sure you're checking that out. It's the best way. It's just the best way to stay tapped in. That's the best way that I can put it. The best way to stay tapped in. So you've got last week. What was the big thing that happened? My biggest qualm with the rankings last week was Tennessee was ranked ahead of BYU and Indiana. And then all of a sudden, people got kind of upset about that, right? I specifically remember Joel Klatt going into the media and using his power to fight for Indiana and BYU in that sense. And I thought that they were each ranked a little too low as well, by just a spot or 2. Well, both of them last week, after beating Utah and BYU, this is over a week ago at this point, they ended up jumping Tennessee after Tennessee beat Mississippi State. Well, yeah, Utah and Michigan, they're probably better opponents than Mississippi State. That's fair, right? But Tennessee beat them pretty soundly. Michigan and BYU had to kind of escape. BYU, Indiana not as much, beat Michigan by 5. BYU had to escape Utah in a big rivalry game. The committee said those were really big games. That's why they deserve to be ranked ahead of Tennessee. Tennessee, a one-loss team. So their justifications were kind of inconsistent, right? Calling those a big game. Well, they were able to jump teams after that. And they jumped a Tennessee team. They jumped Notre Dame. They jumped, Miami and Georgia losing. So they flew up some spots. Well, my question this week would be, was Georgia beating Tennessee a big game to the committee, right? Was that a big game where Georgia just beat not Utah, not Michigan, but beat number 7 Tennessee, a team that was ahead of it in these rankings? A team that probably is deserving of one of the 12 spots at the end, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to get it. What will the committee do with Georgia now that it has that win? And it doesn't just have that win, it has more of these big wins than any other school in the country. I understand it has the 2 losses. That's why it can't be ranked at the top. Do they jump Ole Miss and Alabama now that they have that big a win? Obviously, their biggest win is over Georgia. So the committee's got a real problem with this thing. I think when it comes to Georgia, and maybe these head-to-heads, maybe the way to look at it is to just start throwing the head-to-head out the window. I don't think that you could do that all the way because I do think that it matters, but we're starting to get to a point where maybe we just need to start looking at blind resumes and ranked wins, and maybe throwing these names out the window to rank these teams. I kind of think that originally the committee was sleeping on sleeping on an Indiana, sleeping on a BYU, and I think that maybe they were looking too much at big brands at the beginning, and then I kind of go and look at it now and say maybe we just need to throw these brands out there. Maybe that's the way that Georgia needs to be ranked. Excuse me. So Oregon, I don't think their ranking is going to change at the top. I don't think Ohio State or Texas are going to change. Penn State, I believe, will stay at 4. I truly think that your top 5, where it had 4 Big Ten schools and 1 SEC schools, is going to remain the same heading into this week. But 6 is where they've got it. Is Notre Dame number 6? Is it Miami? Is it Alabama? Is it Ole Miss? Is it Georgia? Georgia could fly up to me, with this big win, as high as number 6. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen. I just don't believe that the committee is going to do that. I think that Georgia will move up, but to me, it has the opportunity to move up as many as 6 spots. I think that's too much to ask of the committee. You look at the AP poll, and now the AP poll originally had Georgia at 11 and not 12, and they had Georgia moving up 3 spots this week. They had, I think it's interesting to look at, outside of that top 5, they had Notre Dame 6, Alabama 7, Georgia 8, Ole Miss 9, Tennessee 10, Miami 11, 12 Boise State. I don't think that the college football playoff ranking is going to be as similar as the AP poll this time. To me, that's just such a hard thing to rank, and the rankings were already a little bit different. But you see that people do think that Georgia needs to move up spots. And just the way that things work, Tennessee and BYU lost in front of them. Georgia should move up at least 2 spots. So like I said at the beginning, at the very worst, I think you're going to see Georgia ranked number 10 tonight in the college football playoff rankings. But I think it could be anywhere from 6 to 10. That's kind of the range that we're talking about Georgia being ranked. Well, why does this matter? Why are we talking about it so much? Why am I waiting so long to get to that point? These rankings matter because it could be the difference between Georgia playing on the road or Georgia playing at home in a playoff. What happens if it's in an 8-9 situation? It could end up playing Alabama or Ole Miss again. It could end up going to Notre Dame or something like that. Not all of these environments are going to be as scary as some of the others, but a Georgia team that has been a little bit inconsistent. I know that the most recent game Georgia's played pretty well in, and you think, hey, maybe that can be the version of Georgia that you see moving forward. The truth is the team has been a little inconsistent, and going and playing on the road in the playoffs is going to be a tough thing because I expect that most of these places to be a pretty electric environment. I don't think Georgia would end up playing Penn State. I don't see that being a possibility at this point with the way I think things are going to play out. But what you really want is you want Georgia to have a home game. So it has the comfort of being at home, the advantage of being at home, and a higher chance of moving on to the next round. At first, I didn't think that was likely. I'm starting to think that now. Thanks for watching.